One of the conversations that comes up a lot in the social media mixer, which is our um, online networking group that I host for founders of brands that support moms. And this conversation also comes up with other founders that I talk with, is that they are wondering if they should be spending their time and energy building a personal brand, a company brand, or both. And my answer is it depends. But I want to talk you through some of the things of how I help people make that decision and why often both is the answer. So here's the thing. Personal brands, we know on social media, connect with humans. Humans connect with humans. And we are even seeing big companies right now, like Wendy's and beauty companies and clothing brands lean into personality, connection, story, because that's what cuts through the noise. But when you're building a company, or maybe you're a solopreneur and you don't have a company just yet, it might be like, okay, so which one do I focus on? Again, it depends. And it also depends upon where you are in your business growth. If you've already built a team and you've got some people around you doing client work, serving your customers, building a company brand and focusing on the company brand is likely the right path. But I'm going to caveat that with having a presence for your personal brand is really important because you, as the CEO, as the thought leader, behind that brand adds value and credibility when you have an online presence and your personal brand is well defined. That doesn't mean you have to show up 24/7. That doesn't mean you have to dance on TikTok if you don't want to, but it does mean that you are establishing yourself as an expert in the field and the leader of that brand. Now, what if you're like, okay, but today I am a solopreneur and there's no team, but I see a team in the future. Should I focus on both? Well, maybe in that instance, you're focusing on your personal brand, your name, but there is a placeholder online on social media for your company, for your professional brand that we can always add to and grow upon later. I know a lot of people get in their heads that the company brand or the corporate brand is like stuffy or impersonal or robotic or disconnected, and it doesn't have to be. The intent is that we infuse the personality that you built into the company and into the business into that brand that is not a person, if that makes sense. And you don't have to choose which one you're going to focus on. You can do both, but you probably can't do both very well for very long because honestly, creating social media content and being relevant on social media and just marketing in general, it's a full-time job. And leading your company, serving your clients, those are also full-time jobs. Being a parent, full-time job. We don't get breaks from that. So the truth is you have to figure out what your bandwidth is and what makes sense for you right now. And know that you can always shift down the road. It's important to remember, though, that whether we're focusing on the company brand or the personal brand, you set the tone for the voice, the values, the vision. But that doesn't mean you have to be the executor. Things can be delegated. Content creation, strategy, posting, engagement, day-to-day visibility can be delegated for both personal brands and company brands. But then what stays in your court is leadership, innovation, the why. Often long form content might stay in your court, or if you're outsourcing and delegating long form content, you're at least having conversations with that content creator so that that thought leadership is truly coming from your thoughts. Now, because this podcast is about strategic social media, I want to share a little bit about my journey with the Consistency Corner and my personal profile, Ruthie Sterrett, and kind of how we got to where we are today, because maybe that'll help you think about where you'd like to go with your brand. So when I started the Consistency Corner in 2021 as a marketing strategy, marketing consulting podcast, I didn't really know what I was doing, y'all. We were just figuring things out. We were new. I started a new Instagram for the Consistency Corner. I had built my personal Instagram, Ruthie Sterrett, as a network marketer. It was a lot about Beachbody. It was a lot about health and fitness. And so we shifted over to a company brand, Consistency Corner. And I slowly over time built that up. I built up as an authority in the marketing space. And then I was like, okay, but it's the profile's name is Consistency Corner, but Consistency Corner as of until just, a few months ago was just me. And I wasn't really building my personal brand at all. That profile was just kind of hanging out. And every once in a while I'd post, photos from Halloween or Christmas or first day of school or whatever, but I wasn't really building on that profile. And then I realized a couple things. And I wanted to build a team. I knew that. And I knew that that was in the cards for the very near future, and that the company brand would start to become a representation of our entire team and not just me. So in that instance, I decided to lean back into my personal brand and start creating content and building and engaging on my Ruthie Sterrett Instagram. And then the Consistency Corner Instagram kind of got a placeholder. We put up a 9 grid there. And that lasted for a few months, and I experimented with some things, and I kind of did case studies on my own content, and I gathered data. And then when it was time to bring on team members and relaunch this podcast, for me, the right next step was to use the Consistency Corner Instagram page to promote the podcast and to share the work that our team does as social media experts. And then my personal profile, Ruthie Sterrett, I really use to build community, to connect with other founders, to invite people and our audience to our networking events, the social media mixer, and to really share my own personal values and my own journey as a mom, as a business owner, as somebody who cares a lot about the mental load for working moms, for somebody to share their kind of point of view that moms are the ones that are going to change the world, but we need a little help. And so we're talking about those things over on Ruthie Sterrett. And then the Consistency Corner, we're talking more about social media strategy and content creation and things like that. So that's all really nuanced, and that has evolved over time. And when I work with my clients, we work through that same nuance. We figure out what's the creative direction for a company profile? What's the creative direction for a personal profile? What's the brand voice for each one? How are they differentiated? How are they similar? Who is doing what for each profile, and where are we prioritizing our time? So, like I said, it depends. It depends where you are in business. It depends your business goals. It depends what you're working on right now. It depends on what you might be working on in the future. I do think for most brands, both the company brand and the CEO's personal brand need a presence, but that doesn't mean for every single brand you should be focusing on building both and optimizing and maximizing both. That's going to depend upon really those business goals and where you are in your business journey. So if you are thinking like, okay, but what if I don't want a personal brand because I don't want to show up online at all? Like, I don't like showing my face. That's totally fine. It can be, but you're going to get different results because personal brands, as I said in the beginning of this conversation, are what is resonating and connecting with people right now. And we can find a way to build your personal brand and show up online that doesn't feel cringy, that feels okay for you. And that's all about figuring out what your zone of genius is, what type of content you like to create, what type of content you don't like to create, what type of content can be created for you and with you that makes it easier to show up as your true authentic self because you've got support from people who are experts in this. So if you are feeling the tension between staying visible, building your brand, creating content, and managing all the things, you are not alone. The new way that we support founders at the Consistency Corner is designed to really do both. And stay tuned. You'll hear more about some resources that we have coming soon. But if in the meantime, you're like, I need help right now, head over to Instagram, either account, the Consistency Corner or Ruthie.Sterrett, and send me a DM and let's have a conversation. And I can chat with you about ways that we can get social media off your to-do list, whether it's personal brand, company brand, or both. So thanks so much for being here, friends. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Consistency Corner podcast.